Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Jose Rincon. I'm the Artistic Services Manager here at Opera America. And it's my pleasure to welcome you all to tonight's Making Connections session. Tonight's session is being streamed live on the homepage of the Opera America website, so thank you and welcome to those of you who are joining us online. Tonight's session is also going to be recorded and placed in our online video archive, which will be available to Opera America members. So if you are not an Opera America member and would like to be, you can see me or Megan or Lindsay, and we'd happily sign you up. I would also like to draw your attention to 4 books over here. These are our Perspectives series for singers. Those books are filled with great articles on career advice for singers. I know Yuri has contributed to the series. It's really a wonderful resource. So feel free to take a look at those after the session tonight. On your seats you have the program for tonight's event with panelist bios. You also have our brochure for all of our programs this season for artists, and you have our hot off the press conference brochure. Our conference is going to be May 7th to the 11th in Boston this year, so you can find more information in that brochure and also on the Opera America website. If you could take a moment to silence your cell phones, anything else that might make noise during tonight's session, that would be great. The discussion portion will go till about 8 p.m. Afterwards, we hope you'll stay for a glass of wine and some continued conversation. So, without further delay, I'll turn it over to John.
Thanks very much, Jose. Well, I'm really delighted to be able to delve into this important topic with all of you. And as we talked about earlier, I'm going to ask each one of you an individual question, but I hope that you can all chime in because we have a really diverse group of perspectives here. But before we start, I would like to get a sense of who's in the room in our live audience. And could you raise your hand if you're a singer? And could you raise your hand if you're a conductor? It is as we had thought. Yeah. So we were taking bets and backs. So all right, well that'll help inform some of the questions we ask. So Yuri, can I start with you?
Sure.
So in this month's issue of Opera News, there was a particularly critical review of a very high-profile performance in our own city of New York, which the venue will remain nameless, where the activity on stage made it impossible for the singers to stay with the conductor, to be able to collaborate for the whole time. There were some train wrecks, and it was a big problem. So I was wondering if you had some tips for following a conductor during a performance that has a lot of stage business or a particularly hectic scene.
Well, I would just like to say that I think what didn't happen in that production, I wasn't there, but I don't even know where it was, but I can't imagine that was rehearsed well enough. That's all I can say, because usually in the rehearsal process, you know where these things are going to happen, and either a number of singers and or the conductor say, wait a minute, something's got to be changed here. I need to be able to contact with the singer on the stage there or the chorus or whatever is the problem. And then if it is difficult, you get to a point where you can see the conductor, even with the busy stage business. So, I mean, I sang a lot of servinettas, and there was always a lot of stage business, but you knew where the critical moments were, that you had to be looking, you know, and if it was this way, you kind of put your head in that direction, just to get a certain cue. So I just find that a little bit odd, that wasn't rehearsed properly, is what I would think happened, because I don't know of, and if it kept happening, why it wasn't fixed.
Yeah, this was a subsequent performance, I think, that was reviewed. It wasn't the opening night.
But I mean, that just means that it was going to happen, and they didn't fix it before it became a problem.
Yeah.
And I don't quite understand that. So
when you had those servinettas and you were being blocked, and you were in the rehearsal room, when was the point when you would say to the director or to the conductor or to yourself, I need to take care of myself at this point, or that point? When would you identify those places?
Well, I think it would be around the time, not in the initial staging, because you always give the stage director the benefit that in the movement process it'll all get worked out. I would say maybe in a run-through or 3 days later, you know, when you're running that scene and you say, uh-oh, this is going to be a problem. Or, and certainly when you get to the stage, if so-and-so's, you know, if I were on a platform or I were below and there was a really tall person standing in front of me and, you know, it was like, I can't see to get this particular cue. On the other hand, the whole rehearsal process is supposed to be about tempi and entrances and color, when we can talk about that later, but I mean, but sometimes you just don't even have to watch. You know when.
What?
No, you're feeling so comfortable. No, I mean, you feel so comfortable because you've rehearsed it, that you know that the person who's waving his or her arms around is going to be with you at a certain point, and they've also discovered where the problems lie, and so they're going to do something that will help. But yeah, I think it's pretty obvious that you don't have to be watching the conductor at every second of the opera. I mean, I don't think that's anything so revolutionary.
Did you ever say to the director, especially after a few rehearsals, you know, I'm running around too much, and so I have a hard time here as a result. Can we have me not moving so much?
I probably did. Of course, I can't remember what I did yesterday, Neil. So I mean, I'm old. But I think what you try to do is in the rehearsal period, and that becomes a big if too, because if it's one of these put in water and stir things, then I think that makes everybody feel uncomfortable, you know, and they feel that, well, this is the way I have to do it. Where if you have time to rehearse, then if the director wants you to move at a certain point, I mean, if it's not so choreographed that, you know, everything has to be done on a point in the music, you can work around it. Like if you're running around a lot, you just run in a certain way and you keep doing it until you get it right. You stop at a certain point and then you keep moving, or you know, so you work it out and it seems to be fine, unless, as I said, unless it's choreographed with every point of music being with a gesture or something like that, like we have in Nixon and China. I mean, the secretaries have to do things on an exact beat, you know, and they've had to work that out, that can't get in the way of the singing, you know. So
I think though that I've had several experiences where those potential problems, either moments or just general conceptual problems, if anticipated early enough, can be solved in any number of ways. And I know with Nixon in China, there's several moments where the singers are lying down on their back on these beds. And I mean, this is a production that's 23 years old, so they know this, but there are flying monitors. There's monitors up over the stage, facing down, so that the singer can go and see the conductor. And so that's built in.
of course, that's assuming your eyesight is.
That's the problem with all monitors. But I remember, you know, we were talking about a production that I did up at the Miller Theater, the Xenakis Oresteia, and a crazy, crazy piece. One of the hardest things I've ever done and ever will do. And at the very first production meeting, the director sat down, and I had just met him, and he said, Steve, everybody, this piece is a ritual. And I want it to be raw and immediate and direct to the audience, and it should just happen. And I don't think that we should see the conductor. And so I don't want to have a conductor in front of
It would
me.
be quite raw.
Right. What do you mean by raw? No, I mean, and you know, as he discussed this as a philosophical point, I couldn't agree with him more.
Yeah.
Is it okay? Then let's explore how to do this. And we figured out a way to have me in the wings, and I had some eye contact with some of the chorus that was across from me, and it was all monitor.
Yeah.
And so, okay, then we're going to have a big monitor there for the singers, we're going to have a big monitor there, and then each of the band players, okay, if we're going to arrange them like that, then they need to have a little TV at their feet. There's ways to do anything.
Right.
You just need to plan for it. And so it sounds like in whatever this production was, that point when something should have happened to avoid a situation where this would have happened it didn't happen.
It sounds like you might be implying too that some of the singers might not have been the greatest advocate for themselves. Maybe they went along with it just because there was a shortened rehearsal period.
Well, maybe it worked better in the room than it actually did on the stage. I don't know.
Yeah.
I wasn't
Singers
a fly
can
on
also
the
get
wall.
shot down. I mean, you
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
say,
Yeah.
I need some help,
Yeah.
and then it doesn't happen,
Yeah.
and there's a point where, I mean, I don't know where it was, but there are places where you stop.
Yeah.
Part of our
Fighting.
job as conductors is to be the singer's advocate.
Right.
Because if they don't do it great, if they don't look great, we don't look great. If they don't sound great, it doesn't do a service to the
Right.
production in any
Right.
possible way.
Exactly.
Exactly. Like we want everyone to sing their best, and so a lot of times that means we have to stand up for them, to the director, and say, you know, this isn't going to work, or you know, this is I need to have eye contact with the singer at this point. So can you
What can we do?
can you help? Can
Yeah.
you find a way?
Yeah.
And so I've never had a director who says no,
Right.
but it's always a matter of finding the right way to ask the question, to make the request.
Sure.
And actually, I always teach a class at Madison. It's a different class every year, but the first thing I say is that no matter what the course is called, it's really about how to get rehired. And it's for graduate students, it's not for undergraduates. And most of them have a lot of stage experience, and it's an incredible school and an incredible class. But one of the first things we talk about is how do you talk to a conductor? How do you talk to a director? Those are two very, very different things. And when do you stand up for yourself? And when you go from one through someone else to do it, and so these very questions.
Someone else being like the conductor would go through the singer for the director, or
Absolutely,
the other way around. Yeah.
absolutely, and occasionally it'll be go through the manager if things are really get difficult.
I remember a long time ago hearing that a singer had gone in to do a Lucia or something, and the conductor they were talking about it, and she said, well, this is the way I do it. And I just found that very odd. It was a contemporary of mine. It wasn't an older singer. It was a contemporary of mine. And I just found that very odd because I thought, well, then you're not leaving it open to any kind of flexibility or production or what the conductor knows that you may not know, or I just found that very odd. And I thought, that probably doesn't bode well for either this woman or her Lucia. I just didn't think, I thought, because one of the things we need to maybe segue into is the preparation, and I think the best advocacy for a singer with a conductor and or a stage director is to be prepared. And by prepared, I mean prepared. I don't mean walking in with the score. I mean totally prepared. And that is everything. That could be a whole nother session. But and it might have been that session that I did 2 years ago. But because then you have a frame of reference.
Yeah.
If you're still, wishy-washing around with the rhythm and the words and the, memory and all that, how can you have a discussion with either the director or the conductor about what you want to do or how you see this character going, or the spoke that you fit in the wheel, where do you fit in? And I'm just, to be honest with you, these days I'm quite appalled at the level of preparation that people are coming. The lack of it, yeah. I just don't know where that's coming from. But anyway,
well, sort of going on with the idea of like this with career development. I sense in the audience that there are a lot of emerging singers, and so one of the very nuts and bolts questions that singers often have is, this one's for Neil to start with. When is it appropriate for a singer to put you down as a reference?
Oh, I mean, you put me down.
Yeah.
First rehearsal, only behind my back.
When you're not prepared. When on their resume, or in a cover letter reference, like I've worked with Neil. Is it one production? Is it 2 productions? Like when is it just a sense?
And a very interesting question. These days, because of the internet, we know everything. And so therefore, if I'm thinking of hiring singer A, and I think on a resume you should either list all the conductors of every production you've done, or none of them. Because if you've left somebody out, that will be who I call. I will look and I will see, she didn't say who conducted that Lucia. Let me find out and call him or her and see what the situation was.
Ooh.
Yeah, exactly, because
It's mean.
well, it's not really a matter of mean. I mean, in this profession,
It's responsible.
you know, it's responsible. None of us are paid that well, so that we have to do everything we can to make sure the whole working situation is as harmonious as possible. Forgive the pun, but that means I have to make sure that the colleague, it's a really good colleague. And if it's not a good colleague, I don't care how well he or she sings. They're not going to be part of my production. So that's why.
That brings up a whole nother.
It does, but that's another thing of how to get rehired.
Yeah.
You know.
Stephen, how about for you?
Well, but surely, I mean, there is still, or maybe there isn't anymore, the actual printed resume that goes in the mail and gets handed, that happens occasionally, right? It's not all just electronic. So you can't list every conductor that you've worked with. I think you list conductors. It has to have been an actual working relationship.
Sure.
It has to have been a production.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if it was a master class and listed as a master class, I mean, you have to have done something with them.
Don't fudge.
You list them if you're confident that it was a good relationship, because obviously that is going to be something that people will check before they go the further Google route that Neil does.
Have you ever gotten a call, maybe someone put you down as a reference and you were surprised because that singer...
I think there's two different things. I think that there's a place on the resume that says conductors I've worked with.
Yeah.
That isn't necessarily as a reference. And I am sometimes surprised that, that I see, wow, I'm not on that person's resume. Well, of course I am. They've done something with me. But I've never been surprised that I've gotten a call saying somebody's using you as a reference, because that's always checked with me beforehand. I think a wise thing these days in the inkjet printer at home is that if you're going in to sing for a company where there's a conductor who you have worked with, switch your resume around and make sure that conductor's on your resume.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because that's not fun. It's like, oh, hi, good to see you. Well, that's interesting. Okay, what do you want to start with? Not that I've ever held it against them, but why not?
Well, but that brings up the whole point about why list any. I mean, I would think that a resume. I always felt a resume was less is more. So if you have the production and the role and where you did it, then it's just as easy to pick up the phone or Google and say, well, who did the Lucia at Manus or whatever,
absolutely.
Especially for young singers. So, I mean, I don't think you should use that group. I mean, I've seen that on the bottoms of resumes, conductors and master classes and directors, and I just wonder sometimes what the connection really was,
right.
And if one of those goes up here to a Lucia,
Right.
then you could have just put it there,
Right,
if
and
that was the last thing you did or
But if
something.
they do put it there, they should put, if the
Everything,
whole,
yeah,
exactly,
yeah.
it should be,
Yeah, it shouldn't be down at the
it shouldn't-
bottom, yeah,
exactly, it shouldn't
yeah.
just be, oh, I'm listing this conductor because they're important, but other ones aren't.
Yeah.
So Stephen, this next question is for you. So throughout the production process, when is it an appropriate time for a singer to come to you if they want some feedback from you about how they are, or maybe career guidance, or how the production's going, or how do you prefer to be approached? And conversely, do you ever approach a singer to say, let's sit down and talk about how it's going so far in production?
There's so many different versions of feedback. So
Maybe more than just like notes after a rehearsal
Right.
or something, like really like how am I doing, where do you see me, what kinds of roles do you think are appropriate for me, like real one-on-one career guidance, like how should
Right.
they approach you, when's the appropriate time?
late in the process. I mean, it's totally hypothetical, but I could imagine a production when, you're in rehearsal for 3 weeks or 4 weeks or 2 weeks or whatever it is. You're in rehearsal, and rehearsals are just always busy. Lots of things going on. And the relationship between the conductor and a singer is one of building a very specific product, performance. And not that that's runs counter to career building, but they're very different things. We are building a bohem, and we're busy doing it. So I could see in my hypothetical world a singer saying somewhere in the last week of rehearsal, saying, once we get open, would you maybe have time for a cup of coffee or a lunch, because I'd love to pick your brain about just the rest of what I'm doing. And I think that that's entirely appropriate. It really does need to be a question, would you have time, as opposed to when can you make time? Because quite possibly that person has a jillion things that are squeezed into the 2 days between each performance. And it might not be possible, and it would not, by definition, be a reflection on that singer or that relationship that singer is having with that conductor. And then you maybe drop it, then you say, oh yeah, sure, let's do that. Then you kind of stay out of the way and let it come back to you, and the conductor says, oh, let's find that time to sit down.
Yeah.
Maybe as you get deeper into the run, if there's a couple weeks, you can say, I don't know what your schedule is like, but I'd love to still find that time. And then if it can't happen, or if it doesn't happen, if it doesn't spark, then you just let it go.
Yeah. And for our conductors watching too, do you ever seek feedback from a singer saying, am I clear? Does this make sense musically? Am I conveying to you what I want to come across?
Yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in a way, you seek that feedback from them in real time.
Sure.
Because it's either happening or it's not happening.
Yeah.
So I don't know that I go and say, can we have lunch because I want to find out if I'm being clear. If I want to ask that question, then I don't want to ask that question.
So they constantly look perplexed.
Yeah. But yeah, that's continual. If something's not together, I mean, it kind of goes back to question A. Then it's our job to say, this isn't happening. So what's not working here? Do you need more time for a breath here or something? But hopefully in the course of rehearsals, that easy and free-flowing dialogue is developing. Because it's those talks, it's that interaction that you have in the rehearsal room that is the glue when you're on stage.
Yeah, well, that's what rehearsals are for.
Right.
I mean, this collaboration.
Yeah, but I think it's more than just, we did it a lot and it worked. But it's it's getting to know each other on under the surface.
But
level as
on the
well.
other hand, well, not the other hand, but in addition, I'm getting back to what Erie said earlier, the sense of collegiality can only be developed if we respect the singers, and vice versa. But if they come in unprepared, as you said, or if I will say to somebody, why are you doing it this way? Because that's how I like it. I automatically think, this is someone who hasn't thought about the music and doesn't know how to think about the music, and I'm not going to ask them any more of these questions, nor am I going to give them respect, but if they know how to say to me, well, I was thinking of this tempo because the character is feeling such and such, and there's tenuity and whatever, then I'll say, I like this person has a lot to offer. I really want to hear what they have to say about lots of things. So I think preparation is really the key to a sense of collegiality.
Well, preparation can allow you to be more flexible.
Absolutely.
You see, that's the thing. Preparation, it's a fine line. Preparation, I come in, I've coached it, I know what I'm saying, I know what's being said about me and to me, and I know how to pronounce it well, and my high notes are good, and the flow is good, But also, it means that in the first days of rehearsing, if somebody's taking a different tempi, and I kind of go, oh, well, that's a little bit brisk. Okay, let's try it that way and see what's going on. Or, wow, that's
Has that
really,
ever
that's
happened?
really, oh yeah,
But that brings
oh
up a really good question, though. When do you, as the singer, approach the conductor and say, this musical interpretation's way off and I'm not comfortable? When do you do
Well,
that?
first of all, you would never use the word way off.
This is why I'm no longer singing.
No, there's a way to do it. And if there's one thing I want to say to people, I made some major mistakes early on. Major. I mean, I can only attribute it to maybe I was really talented that I even got rehired. That's how bad the mistakes were. I mean, because I just, went off. Just, and so there's definitely a way. I had to learn how to do it. And it's like any business. I mean, you're talking to people and maybe even the idea of, well, have you ever thought about doing it this way? Or, Maestro, I'm having a little bit of trouble. I don't think you do it necessarily in the first rehearsal. You try it a little bit and say, well, let's try that. And if I'm still, gasping for air in this one place and I can't, maybe could we take that a little bit faster? Or a really good one, singers, is, I'm sorry, I just seem to be having so many problems with that. I don't seem able to do it the way you want me to do it. Can you help me? And again, because of the collaborative, they want you to not die on the stage. They don't want you like your eyes crossing, and to get through a phrase or something. So I mean, I think it's one of those things that you work out. Now, speaking of preparation, though, there are conductors who are not as prepared as they should be,
Of course.
too. So that's a whole other thing. But of course, the maestro is the maestro. And I always find it very interesting that the stage directors, because we seem to be living in an era, I mean, that pendulum still hasn't swung back the other way yet, where directors are, kingpin. But I have news for everybody. Unless that person in the pit or on the side of the stage waves his or her arms around, nothing happens. You can have the greatest production in the world, and if the person who's in charge of the music doesn't do it, it's not going to happen. So, make nice with the conductor, because in the end, he or she is the one that is there. The stage director bows after the opening night and leaves town, I mean, so usually. But I mean, I just, I'm hoping that pendulum, at least we're going to meet in the middle somewhere on that, because that's gone a little bit haywire this way with the stage director. And not that that's a bad thing, it's a good thing, as long as everybody wants to be collaborating.
So circling back, it's more about once you've given it a try, you tried it once, 2, 3 times, and it still doesn't feel right, then you've given it your very, very best shot.
Hopefully the conductor can tell.
Hopefully.
Well, that's right.
Yeah.
I mean, singers do tend to make, it's very interesting. I taught voice for many years, and I still have a private studio, but, sometimes we think going faster is better, and what we fail to realize is if you go faster, you have less time to breathe. If you take a tempo that's a little bit slower, there's more space to breathe, and the conductor knows that, and so then you can go on, from there. So I mean, we make these mistakes just because we think, oh, I have to go fast, because I don't have the air to get through all of this stuff, that I have to do. On the other hand, no, everybody knows that singers breathe. There's not some little pipe back here going, we know you breathe, and in fact, instrumentalists breathe all the time. You see them breathe. So it's a good thing to breathe. I mean, this idea that you have to sing 14 pages in one breath is just, that means you're never making a comma in the text either. So it's okay to breathe. Breathing is
the
a
other
good
thing
thing.
that many conductors don't know. If you've got a lot of agility in the music, sometimes it's easier faster than slower.
A little bit fast, yeah.
If you just,
That can
it's a matter you find the right speed where the voice just flows,
That's right.
and
Mm-hmm.
that's the speed. You can't
Well,
play
and
with
that's
that.
what rehearsing is for
Exactly.
too, and it might not be like the record. You do it
Absolutely.
differently than the record, and so it's
But I think it's a matter of an ongoing collaboration.
that's right.
And day one, you walk in the door and you have what you have prepared. And you may know every single thing about that character, that role, that music, that history, everything. And the conductor walks in, and the conductor has their preparation. And then you meet, and what I love is that what comes out of it is something new. Something maybe a little new, or something really new. But you only get there by collaborating. And I mean, I will often, first day, oh, we sing through Bohème. Okay, great, so we sing through Bohème. And after an aria or something, I'll stop and it's great, fantastic tempo. And I'm not looking for an answer of, well, here I take a little bit more time. I'm looking for a general, dead on, or I usually take that a little bit faster, but let's work, but let's try. Or, wow, I usually take that a lot faster, or I usually take that a lot slower, but let's play with it. That to me is a day one really good answer. And that means we're going to keep working. We have time. And then you find, and if that relationship is established from the beginning, then you build on it. And just build and build and build, and there will be a point. I think that if I really, for whatever reason, think that this particular thing should go slower, and the singer has never done it at that tempo, and can't sustain the lines that they're usually, I would love to have a conversation where the singer says, I usually go substantially faster than that. You know what? I'm willing. I think that my voice can do it. I'm just going to need more breaths. And maybe we can figure out where those breaths would be.
Sure.
And then maybe I come to a realization, well, you know what? That many breaths, I don't like that. So let's figure out a middle ground. Or I learned something about that singer's voice that I didn't perceive miraculously on the first couple days. And then decide, you know what? Let's move it. It's collaborative.
So Neil, the next question's for you. So as a faculty member at Manish, you work with a lot of emerging singers, some of whom may or may not have a lot of experience working with a full orchestra, especially if they're coming out maybe of a smaller undergraduate program or something. And so I was wondering if you had to pick 2 or 3 of some of the common mistakes that singers make when they're singing with an orchestra for the first couple productions.
First productions or first rehearsals?
Let's do rehearsals.
Well, there's one big one, which is trying to sing loud all the time, because then the orchestra doesn't listen to that. You have to establish as a singer parameters to make sure that they listen to you, instead of that you're going to come up to their volume, whatever it is. So therefore, you have to sing with your voice, and then the orchestra, assuming they're halfway decent, will indeed respond, and if they don't, then it's my job to make them respond. I think that's about it. I mean, it's about volume, and yes, push. Everyone needs to know the limits, and also do it the same way with the orchestra as you did in the piano dress and as you did in the rehearsals. You're not a different singer all of a sudden when you get into the theater. There's nothing I hate more when I get into the theater and the singers suddenly sing loud all the time. That's not what I want. That's not what we rehearsed. And for some reason, oftentimes they feel that they need to fill the space, but they don't. If the acoustics are that bad, we'll discuss. I understand these things, and we can figure these things out together.
Sure.
Is really the thing. It seems the other thing is developing expectations of each other, and I think my job as a conductor is to give very, very clear expectations, and often that is, I need you to look at me here. I need to connect with you just at this instant. Beforehand, it doesn't matter. Here, it doesn't matter. Here, and so if they get nervous and they don't do that, then it's real trouble. But there aren't very many times in any show when that it really needs to be done. It's a tempo changes essentially. But so I think the thing is to have very clear expectations with the singers, and also they'll tell me sometimes I really need your help here, and it's my job to give it to them. If I don't give it to them, I'm not doing my job either. So again, it's collaboration. Just it all comes back to that.
The idea of a cue, of giving
cues.
I mean, there are those places where you might have sung the part many, many, many times or not, and you just say, right there, I need a big high sign. Can you give me the high sign? And if the conductor gives it to you, then you're fine. And maybe even during the course of rehearsal, if they give it to you each time, you wouldn't need it actually in performance because you've done it now enough.
Right.
But man, there are a couple times when in Strauss or something, you know, I just would say, that's the one cue I need, or right there, maestro, please, just give me that high sign, you know, and then I feel okay, you know. But I have a funny story to tell about singing too loudly, and that is that a good piece of advice for singers is you don't want to sing any differently than you've sung in rehearsal, but if you can, and I know this is really difficult, I never really mastered this, but I know somebody who did it really well, and that was Kiri Takanawa. I was singing in San Francisco, Arabella, and she was Arabella. And the rehearsal, near the final dress, it wasn't quite the final dress, but it was close to it. And she just walked out that evening and sang, and all the music staff in San Francisco was running up to the conductor going, too loud, maestro, it's just too loud. And of course, no one would go up to Kiri Takano and say, are you singing out? You know, that's another thing. Everybody comes up to you and goes, are you singing full voice? And then when somebody does that to you, you say, yes, I am. Of course. I would never not sing out. Well, Miss Takanawa sang that whole rehearsal, and we all knew it was a little bit under. I mean, I felt it was, but the orchestra, and boy, the next rehearsal or the next performance, whatever it was, the orchestra played. They now knew that it was supposed to be done like this, and she just bumped it up just about 2%, and it was just sailed right over there. And I thought, that was an invaluable lesson for me to learn, that sometimes with the orchestra, you want to just sing, you know, normally. Don't try to overshoot the orchestra. You can't do it. It's not going to happen. So just sing normally. If they're having balance problems, that's the conductor's job to fix that. Say, you bless, let's, you know. And then the performance will be fine. And with nerves and everything else, you just bump it up just a little bit, you know, and you won't be forcing, but it'll be beautiful. And it's a hard lesson to learn, but man, if you can learn it, it's the best.
But I think young singers who haven't a lot of stage experience, they haven't sung even in enough rooms yet to have that gut physical reaction or that patience with the different kind of acoustic that you'll be singing into. And so even, I mean, I remember this when I was playing, you know, accompanying a lot of auditions, that you would go to Liederkranz, and it was one situation. You go to Nola, and it was a different acoustic. You go to Da Capo, and it was a totally different thing. And I guess my point is that it takes time and experience to gain that maturity, that calmness, to sing with your voice, even though you're not hearing back what you got back in the rehearsal room. And so I don't know that I would jump right away to, you know, the first stage orchestra rehearsal and say, oh my gosh, they're trying to outscream the orchestra. They actually might just be used to hearing something back and thinking, God, what's wrong? Why can't I sing today? And it's just a matter of saying, in here, you're not going to get it back. In here, this is a great hall. You're going to love singing here. Here, you just have to stick to your guns and remind yourself, I know how to sing. And just sing with what feels good, and trust that the audience is going to hear it because it's going to feel dead. And I think that I think for the singers still in that really intensive training phase, that just takes time to learn.
And trust.
Yeah,
it takes
absolutely.
trust in yourself too, that you can
And
do
of course
it.
you wouldn't have that trust in yourself when you feel like, I don't know how to sing yet.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, you go in every day to the voice lesson and you are told that you still have a lot that you need to learn. One of the things I find so often is there's a difference between looking or watching me. There are places where you need to watch me. And then there is that awareness of me that you always need to have. The monitor, and it can be all peripheral. And those singers who are pros at it, you watch them in performance and you think, they are not watching the conductor at all. They're not watching the conductor at all. But from the conductor's standpoint, or even if you know how to recognize it, you know they're totally aware.
Mhm.
They're totally in touch with the conductor. And I will often know those places where, because something's going to go wrong. It's an opera. I mean, it's
live.
something's going to go wrong. Even if you've got it all worked out, something's going to go wrong. And I need to know that if I go like this to fix it,
Yeah, that you'll be there.
the singer is going to notice, and they're going to go from peripheral awareness to I'm watching.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We're fixed?
Yeah.
Great. Or if my beat starts to go like this, they go, oh, I'm watching.
Yeah.
And then my beat goes like this again. Oh, we're fixed. Okay. And we can go back to peripheral. And that
The signs.
flexible
Yeah.
kind of, scale of awareness watching is something that takes decades to learn and to master. And the trick is, the people who do it best, you don't know what they're doing.
Back to something you were just saying, I was thinking that no conductor would ever be upset if a singer said in dress rehearsal, in the zits, Maestro, am I over-singing? We would never be upset about that, but if you say, I really feel like I'm over-singing, or can you hear me, or that you don't do that.
Yeah.
But if you just sort of, there are ways to formulate any of these questions.
Sure.
But if you say, am I over-singing, the first thing I would say is, like, answer the question, but I'd usually say, do you feel like you're over-singing?
Can we do the converse of that? What about marking when a singer's in rehearsal with you? When is it okay? How should they ask you? As a conductor, do you just prefer them not to? Because you need to keep getting a sense of how it's going to sound in performance. When should they absolutely stop marking?
May I?
Yes.
Yes. I'm sure we agree.
I think marking is great. Marking is fine. Marking is a fact of life. You're in rehearsal 6 hours a day, 6 days a week. You gotta mark. You can't sing out the whole time. Always ask if it's okay to mark. Say, Maestro, is it okay if I mark a little bit today? For whatever reason. And I'm super tired, I feel a little bit sick, I want to save it for the orchestra, whatever. Is it okay if I mark? I don't recall that I've ever said to a singer, no. I have said,
Maybe in the
but no,
zits.
but
Maybe in the zits.
except there will be a moment where, for whatever reason, you're on 4 shows in rep, and it's the Zitz Proba, and you have a show that night.
That's of course.
And then you say, is it okay if I mark, some today, because I've got a show, I've got a Rigoletto tonight. And like, well, sure. But what I have said is, yeah, but I need the orchestra to hear this. Or I need you to sing out Act 2. Or choose those places wisely. I can shade it and say, if you really need to.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. But I have been really pissed off to be in an orchestra rehearsal and suddenly a singer's marking.
Yeah.
And they didn't address it with me.
Sure.
Like, what's going on?
Well, I think a really good rule of thumb, unless you're not feeling 100%, and then you should be talking to either the music staff or the conductor. As a young singer, because all of your roles are going to be relatively new, you better be singing most of the rehearsals and throughout the process, because it's a stamina issue.
Mm-hmm.
If you have never sung Tosca, or you've never sung Mimi or Rodolfo, you better sing those parts at least a couple of times during the rehearsal period, and certainly with the orchestra, because you can't leave it to the dress rehearsal and opening night, because you won't have it to give. It's like being an athlete. You don't go out, that's right, you don't go out and run a marathon after only being on the treadmill for 35 minutes. It just doesn't work, So, it does become a stamina issue, and you have to get yourself in shape for that. Once you've done a role, 20 years of a role. There were times where I didn't really have to sing out Servinetta because I knew it was going to come out. I knew what was going to come out. But but still, different altitudes, different weather changes. All that kind of thing, depending on where you are. You want to make sure that you've got it, that you don't leave things in the dressing room or in the hotel room.
And things change when you're marking. You don't need as many
That's
breaths. Your tempo might go faster, or you might be able to go faster when you're marking. And you do need to have established that relationship with your accompanist that one only finds by singing out.
And if you're marking all the time, after a week and a half, management immediately starts looking for a replacement. Because they have to. Because we in management or conducting think there's no way they'll be able to sing this. If they can't, and we'll say, I need you to sing out, I need you to show me that you can do this. And if they're not willing to do that, that's when it's time for, we have already started looking. By the time we ask for you to sing out because we're concerned, that means we've already got some marking plans.
Okay.
Don't you think one would avoid that if the singer was coming up? 'Cause I just want to be asked every day, is it okay if I mark? Is it okay if I mark? And if I'm getting that red flag of, what's going on here, I think I'm going to say, I think I need to hear you sing this. And I might not say, I'm thinking of firing you because you're marking every day. I might say, I think I just need to hear what it is when you sing out so that we establish that. And that might be my code.
And there will be times with the orchestra that you absolutely need to sing out, because how are they going to know about balance if you don't sing out? You know,
I absolutely agree. I'm certainly not advocating just mark your entire life on the show. but I don't think that marking is evil. I don't think marking is unhelpful. I think it is actually very helpful when it's used as a tool to manage our lives and careers.
Especially staging rehearsals where you repeat.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I just want that. I want that to be part of the collaborative relationship.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, so I think we have about 5 minutes left. Are there any questions from our live audience that we can field?
I have a question. One thing that I've heard happen or, experienced to some degree myself is, you might say, I'm having issue with this part, can you help me or whatever? And the response is, well, this is how Verdi wanted it. And there's no marking that says Verdi wanted
I can tell you where you've worked.
And I don't hold sequences or bring people back from the dead. So what would you suggest when approached with, well, that's what Mozart wanted?
First of all, remember, tempo markings, and there are tempo indications, but not, how fast or slow. Look, you have to kind of just take that and go home and call your significant other and go, but I don't know. I suppose you could say, well, that's all very well and good, Maestro, but Verdi's not the one singing this. I am. And
where in your career do you get to say
I think you could make it kind of you could try to make it light, a little bit light of it and say, well, I'm doing the very best I can here, and
But it sounds like they're obviously not interested in collaboration.
well, maybe.
I think
that's
at
might
that
be,
point the response is, to a great extent, defining the parameters of the collaboration.
Yes.
right.
And
So
what
you're
you're
just
going to
take
get.
more breaths and get through it, and just file that person away under.
Do not repeat.
Probably not going to work with that person again.
Ask for more money.
Yeah, that's what that's right. It's just, I think that's right. I think what's happened there is that they've said, for whatever reason,
It's code for no.
it's code for no.
Definitely.
That's right. It's code for no. And a lot of times that does happen. People, I shouldn't make light of that so much, because I do think that sometimes conductors come in with an idea of what the sound should be, the voice type. And obviously there has to be a voice type, but it could be on the light side of it, or it could be on the heavy side of it, or something else. And that's where the conductor almost gets into it with the general manager who did the hiring. Because if your bohème is kind of on the light side, but the whole cast is on the light side, then tempi may have to be changed a bit, from the way Puccini wanted it, and so, I think that's what you're hearing, yes, it's code for no, but you're also hearing that maybe that's not the kind of voice type that they had in mind for it, which could also be a signal for you that, all right, I'm going to have to just take more breaths this time, but is this really the right kind of role for me? And if that happens more than once, then I'd be saying, woo, maybe Tosca is not the thing for me. I mean, as much as I love it, it's not really right for me, So, I mean, there's signals. You can, everybody's going to want you to sing everything. I mean, tenors have this problem now all the time. You bump up to the next level. But I think sopranos are doing it too now. I mean, you're bumping up to the next level, the next heavier repertoire. Is it a good thing? No. But I guess if everybody's bumping up, then it's like, I go to some operas and I say, oh, well, this is like the baby cast of Bohème. I mean, I'm sorry, it's just not the kind of voice that I have in mind. Luckily for you all, I don't do any hiring. So, and I don't know if I could hire the people I want to hire anyway now. Maybe it's a thing. Everybody says, oh, there are no Verdi sopranos. Oh, there are no Verdi. Well, there are, but maybe they're just a little on the lighter side, And, I don't know. It's just a, but it is a thing that if that keeps happening, if people are asking you to sing it at a slower tempo and you just can't do it, but that happens over and over again, then I would almost take that as a sign, wow, wait a minute, maybe I have a different idea of how this piece should go, or maybe my idea is not really the right idea, So that's something to think about too for your own survival, because that person who gave you the code for no is going to turn around and say, oh, so-and-so, Mary Lou, whatever her name is not really right for this part,
All right, I think we have time for one more question. There's one in the back. Yeah.
I was just wondering, what can you suggest for singers that are working with a young conductor?
They're all young.
Very young. He's actually maybe a little green and very eager, but what would you suggest that would be something that a singer can do?
Depends on if they know they're green.
Well, are they good or are they not?
Or do they know that they need help?
Okay, so is that what I should ask them?
No.
No. I don't know if he knows, but he's very good, maybe a little shy.
He does now because this is being streamed. I mean, I can only kind of turn it around because when I have a singer who's particularly green, talented, well-intentioned, just green, then I have to find opportunities to make clear in far more black and white terms what I expect from them. Either in a rehearsal demeanor or a tempo or a breath or an articulation. I have to boil it down and be more clear and less artistic about it. And sometimes, and be patient and patient to repeat the same request, sometimes with different wording, but the same request for the same intent. So, I mean, I don't know what the issues in this specific case are, but if the issue is their tempo is erratic, it pushes, it pulls, and it shouldn't, then rather than identifying for that person, you're rushing, which makes me think, well, it's too in-your-face accusatory. I would say, I need this spot here to be particularly strict because I need this breath here.
Can I interject something? Mm-hmm. I think basically I always start with the assumption that you have to give everyone respect. You have to give them their respect and put yourself in their place. And if you do that, then you've figured out how to talk to them in a different way than you might have originally wanted to do. And so if you start with that, then you can usually find a way to get there. Even if the person doesn't know anything and they're ill-prepared, they still need their respect, because if you don't give them that, they're not going to hear you at all. So.
And they're your accompanist.
They're absolutely.
And they might be at the piano. It's the same job. It's just a bigger piano and with a lot more brains, number of brains, and you need to figure out how to work together. So, kind of the same way you would work with a green pianist.
I mean, green isn't necessarily bad.
Exactly.
You know,
Right.
I mean,
For those listening.
if the, no, I mean, if the talent is there, and that person may be also their interpretation of the piece may bring new light to your performance too. You know, I mean, I think the worst possible thing for a singer would be to be doing the same roles over and over and over again, which is what a career is all about, but to never look at them in a new way, to never re-examine them. You know, I think that would be really dull. And, you know, so I think it's okay. I mean, now if they're going to, you know, you don't want them wrecking your performance, but they don't want to wreck your performance either.
Right.
So that's the bottom line, is that, but how you say things is very, and especially these days, I'll tell you, being politic is really important.
Respectful.
Respectful.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
yes, I suppose politic, but
respectful. There's a word. Yeah, but I mean, no. Just always take that extra breath, and you know. I mean, I had a stage director once say to me, you know, you always say fine when I give you a direction, and I would. I go fine, fine, thinking that I was really saying fine. And he said, I know you don't mean it. And he was right. I didn't mean it. I mean, and so you know, I was, so I had to come up with a different word. And I said, okay. You know, but I mean, you have to kind of put your actress.
we can still.
Yeah, I mean, so you really have to put on your actress hat and just be, you know.
But a good line is always, I need your help here.
It's good to know.
Because who doesn't want to help? But who doesn't want to be seen as a helper?
Well, we have run out of time, but I'd like to give a round of applause to all of our panelists. For those of you here in the live audience, I hope you can stay and chat with us afterwards. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Likewise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Friends
Also,
and the internet.
we all knew we could agree with each other, too.
And if we didn't, I'm outnumbered.
That's why we put you in there.
That's right.
No, actually, I really like because you have